And welcome to this next episode of the Sneaker Principle Podcast. Where do we start? So, for those of you who are joining me for the first time in this episode, I'm going to share with you I am on a mission. I was challenged about 2 weeks ago, I think, by a friend of mine about committing the next 6 months to creating content. Better yet, committing the next 6 months to this podcast. And I have to say that I was intrigued by this challenge because I was complaining about how time and all the things, all the woe is me for why I haven't been consistent with the podcast. Especially seeing a lot of people that I come across in my profession as a school principal, as a school leader, as an educator, somehow, some way connect me to the moniker, the Sneaker Principle, and specifically about the fact that I have a podcast. I know most of them have never actually heard or listened to any of my podcasts, but however, that's become a brand that I'm connected with. And this friend of mine was telling me how I need to take this more seriously. Even though this whole entire thing has been happening for the better part of almost 5 years, the amount of time in which I've been actually consistent with it has been extremely limited compared to the full 5 years. So here I am, and I'm committed to creating content on a daily basis, crossing my fingers, all the way through June of 2025. So today, being December 27th, and my commitment to that challenge, here I am. And there's a weird sound I'm hearing. Sounds like a helicopter. I'm not sure. Okay. Yeah, it sounded like there was a helicopter right above my building. How do I know about helicopters? Because I lived and grew up in Los Angeles, where we had what we called the ghetto bird, which was the helicopters that surveyed our communities in the hood. But okay, so this episode, I am committing to talking about one of my indulges during a break. And so as you know, right now we're in the winter recess, Christmas break, whatever you want to call it. And I'm doing something that a lot of my colleagues are doing as well. When I talk about my colleagues, I'm not just talking about principals, I'm talking about educators and those people who have the fortunate advantage due to our career of having this, 7 to 10 days off for the break. And for those of you in private school, like my daughter attends a private school, your break goes all the way to the 6th, so which is kind of awesome. So you know, not only do you have the Christmas, New Year's, but your students don't return until, I think, the Monday of the 6th, if I'm correct about that. If the 6th is not a Monday, my apologies, but I know you guys have more time. So what do? A lot of us spend time with family. Some of us, we just sleep. Some of us clean our houses out. Some of us are traveling. But a lot of us are binging on shows that we've missed because we don't have the leisure during the regular school year of watching our shows. Most of the time we're planning, we're engaged, we're still at work, we're engaged in preparing for the next day. So we don't get the fortunate advantage of sitting at home watching TV. So one of the guilty pleasures of being on break is catching up on shows. And there's one particular show for me that I've been hearing about over and over again. I've been seeing social media posts, articles, all kinds of stuff around this one particular show, and I've just kind of ignored it. I've been like, I don't want to hear anything. I'm not reading anything. And sometimes I slip and I see something which is a spoiler. I'm like, I gotta watch this show soon enough. So I started watching it. And from the title of this episode, you already know what it is. Yellowstone. Yes, I am a black man. I'm Nigerian, West African. But guess what, though? My mom's favorite genre of music is country music. As a kid, I knew more Kenny Rogers songs than I knew any other music. Pretty much, I knew who Patsy Cline was and Dolly Parton. I knew these people. Because of my mother's love for country music. And I think a lot of Nigerians love country music because a lot of the music that came from America in the 70s and 60s were Christian songs. And the core of gospel music comes from the South. So it's a lot of gospel music that is country, either sang by black folk or white folk. That's a tendency to have a lot of music from America during that time be country music. But not only that, if you watch a lot of TV, for me growing up, I watched a lot of Elvis Presley movies. I don't know why, but it was always on TV, especially when we came here to America. So I watched a lot of Elvis Presley movies, a lot of cowboy movies, Lone Ranger. I can't remember a lot of the names of the shows, but there was a lot of country music. The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Clint Eastwood was like, in my mind, the quintessential American man. So a lot of that. So this show that I've been binging on, Yellowstone, I have to be honest with you, since the break has started, I'm into season 4 right now. I'm pleased. I know people are going to be like, damn, you just be sitting around watching TV. I'm always multitasking. So I'm either paying bills or respond to emails or doing laundry, folding laundry, cooking. The TV is just always in the background. So I don't have the ability to sit down and just watch for hours on end. I got to be doing something else. And a couple of those episodes I had to watch multiple times because of the fact that I was distracted by something that was more important than focus on the show. But I got to tell you, the show has been quite incredible. Kevin Costner, Dances with Wolves, Bodyguard. I think there's 2, Waterworld. Was it Waterworld? I think those were 3 films that I was like, oh, I messed with Kevin Costner. Apart from that, nothing else stands in my mind as being anything, spectacular. But I'll tell you this, in Yellowstone, he is spectacular. The whole entire storyline, the family, every character is very, very interesting. But as I'm watching it, one thing I've noticed realized is the fact that this show speaks to leadership in ways that are so blatant. And I think if you're not in a leadership role, or you're not always thinking about your leadership and how you manage people and support people in their growth, you would miss this completely. You'd be more caught up with the action and the betrayal and the back and forth and all those different things. But there is a very, very clear line of leadership principles being presented in this show, which I want to share with you. If you think it's complete nonsense right now, you can go ahead and just click off, swipe right, left, whatever, go to the next video. But if you're interested in this, stick with this. I'm telling you, I'm going to ground 6 leadership principles around 5 characters in the show and around the core family in the show. So I have my notes here. Let's go ahead and start. So the foundation of the show, first of all, spoiler alert, if you've not seen it, I'm sorry, don't listen to this. But I'm not going to give you anything particular. But, I mean, in general, if you look at the synopsis of the show, or description, this is what you're going to hear. For the most part, this show is about a family they're ranchers in Montana. They have a farm, take that back, a ranch, which they've been holding in the family, I think, somewhere between 100 and, I want to say about 150. No, not 150. I got to take that back. I want to say it goes back about 100 years, easily 100 years, maybe a little bit longer, 100 years. Because there is a prequel show called 1923 that kind of goes back to 1923, and I want to say either his father or his grandfather, and their struggles with the ranch as well. So this is Montana, a space where land has been in contention for years. You first had the Native Americans who had their land taken away from the Europeans, the Americans, and and land that belonged to everyone now being parceled to landowners. And the Dutton family are owners of a very large piece of land called Yellowstone. And this is connected to Yellowstone National Park, I believe. I might be wrong about that, but please correct me. And this show's really about people fighting for land. You have the Native Americans trying to get the land back. You have the Duttons who are trying to keep their land, but they've had it for so long now. Then everyone else who wants to develop and take that land. So it's a constant battle around this land and a way of life, for the most part, that has been a constant in this part of the world. And the core, the main protagonist, or antagonist, depending how you want to see it, is John Dutton, played by Kevin Costner. And then he has sons and a daughter. You have, and then you have other very important peripheral characters, but are very close to him as well. So you have John, you have Kayce, you have Jamie, you have Beth, you have Rip Wheeler, who is not a child of his. The other three are his children. But then you have Wheeler, who pretty much he adopted for the most part, who's been with him since he was a teenager, and now as a grown man is pretty much his right-hand man. And these characters kind of spread out to other characters that are very important to this whole entire narrative. But, however, what I want to do with you as quickly as I can is share with you concepts around leadership that is core to these characters. So the first one here is John. So I'm going to tell these like principles as tagged to that character. So protect your vision is the John Dutton principle. So the thing with John, I think all the other patriarchs of this family, is that they've had this vision that this land is not just their own land, but belongs to their children. So they do everything they can to expand it, to keep it, to grow it, so that it is the legacy that's passed on from generation to generation. And when I say that John Dutton protects this vision fiercely, I mean, there is no other word to describe how much he puts and believes in this is how things are supposed to be, and this is what I'm willing to do to keep it the way it is. We are excellent. We're not perfect, but we're excellent, and this excellence is grounded in who we are as we are connected to this land. And as a principal, I think about that. The success of my career in leading schools, I'm in my third school, has been grounded in vision. I share this with parents all the time, that one of my favorite Bible quotes or passages is that my people perish for a lack of vision. And a lot of times we struggle and we fail because we don't have a clear vision. Like, what is it we're doing here? Why are we doing this? And to what end and for what purpose? And this is the thing that John Dutton stands on and lives on. And I ask myself as a school leader, Betty, I ask you as a school leader, what is your vision? Not the stuff that sounds good for your CEP, for your comprehensive educational plan, or whatever you call it in your state, that thing that you kind of put together for the school year so the district knows what you're working on. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your vision. As a leader, as someone who's taken over a school community, what is that thing that you're like, this is what we stand on, and nothing will shift away from what we're standing on right now, here and now. This is the thing that we must accomplish. Yeah, there might be peripheral visions and missions and things like that that feed into it, but at the core, this is what we're doing. So for John Dutton, keeping that land in the family and making sure it's passed on like it was passed on to him, no matter what. So for John Dutton, it's about protecting your vision. Number 2, we're going to go to build a strong team. My favorite character in this show is Rip Wheeler. So I'm not going to spoil. I'm not going to do a spoiler. I'm not going to do a spoiler, but I'm going to tell you, he is not one of John's sons, but technically he is a non-biological son. This is a young man that he pulled into the fold much earlier in his life. He was like 13. At this point in time in the show, he has to be at least well in his 40s. So he's been on the ranch for a long time. And he's one of those like tragic stories that kind of makes good in a roundabout kind of way. But however, this young man, when he was brought in, I want to say he was probably 14 or 15 years old, has become the right-hand man of John Dutton. He's the hand of this ranch. Nothing moves on that ranch without him giving a nod to. But he gives every courtesy, every acknowledgement, every respect to John Dutton. So it's funny because throughout the whole entire show, he only calls him sir. He doesn't call him Mr. Dutton, he calls him sir. And it's one thing to call somebody by their last name, but it's another thing to call them sir, almost like there's a chain of command and you know exactly who your boss is. And again, why is this important? It's important because there's a thing about building a strong team. Whether intentional or not intentional, John Dutton is constantly building. He's identifying which people can he pour into. And sometimes the people he picks don't work out. And this is shown over and over again through the show. People who he invested in and literally didn't buy into the vision, or he just made a poor choice. But he's constantly looking for people that he can add to his ranch as hands, as cowboys, as confidants, if they become that. Because again, at the core of any successful organization is the team. You don't just bring people in willy-nilly. You make sure you're bringing people in who can feed into that vision. And Rip Wheeler is the epitome of somebody who their addition into that team, into that ranch, to that family, has been like incredibly like cornerstone. There are episodes where Rip is willing to put himself at risk because he believes so much in the vision. And not only that, he's so appreciative of the opportunity he was given by John Dutton that he will go at all lengths to make sure that vision is successful. So think about this. Who are you hiring? Who are you bringing to your team? Who are you building up? Is it just about you as a principal? Is it just about you as a leader? Are you constantly asking yourself, how do I make this team stronger? How do I bring the right people in? And sometimes the people you're bringing in or the people that you're building, they don't even see it for themselves. So you have to be their Pied Piper. You have to be their structure of support. You have to keep pouring into them until they see it. And if they don't, or they're not willing to, you have to also be willing to say, hey, this person got to go. And you see a lot of that in the show. People who just don't fit in, and rather than risking tearing down or destroying what you're building, they had to go. So the Rip Wheeler principle is grounded in building a strong team. Now, the next one here, number 3, adaptability is the key. Adaptability is the key. This principle is grounded around John Dutton's daughter, Beth Dutton, who's probably the most savage, the most like this is the Navy SEAL of the family. She is the Special Forces. She is the MI6, CIA, FBI, Delta Force. That's her. Like one moment she is being this, and the moment she's being that. But at all times, she's adapting to what's happening. She's the one person who sees all the angles and advises John. And he has other advisors, but hers is different. There's been circumstances in the show where you're like, oh my God, they're losing. Then you realize she made one decision as she was plotting or planning something that we didn't see. But when the enemies or those who were counter the family, thought that they had made that checkmate move, not even checkmate, they've done that check move, they realized, oh no, it was just checkmate. You thought you had me, but I positioned you to make that move when really it was really a checkmate. I have another move after your move. And again, as a leader, you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to see things as they're coming from different angles and always pre-plan things to make sure that your vision is intact. However, if you're not able to do that, who is your Beth Sutton? I'm sorry, Beth Dutton in your team, in your field of influence. Because one thing I've learned is if I can't do it, who's that person for me? Who are those additional eyeballs to support me? And so many times, John didn't see things coming, but Beth did. And it's almost like she's a prophetess. She makes moves so far in advance that, it's like, man, she's the ultimate master at adapting not just herself, but the organization, the family, into situations before they even happen. So again, as a leader, who's your person? How do you handle situations? Are you adaptable? And if you're not adaptable, that's a weak area of your skill set. How do you position others around you to be able to do that for you? All right. Number 4. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to move number 4 to number 6. Let me just keep going. So I want to talk about the key family members. So now you have Kayce Dutton, who's low key my favorite because he's the white hat cowboy. He's the Lone Ranger. He is, the good, the bad, the ugly. He's the Clint Eastwood character. The one who really wants to just take care of his family and leave his past behind. But however, he's also tactically the strongest member of the family. He is the one who, when all things are falling apart, is the most calm and able to react with the force needed for the family. So his principle is titled Resilience Through Tough Times. His story, his life has been nothing but tough times. And he just seems to keep pushing forward. The moments that you think he's broken and you're like, man, I don't know how he's going to come out of this, he finds a way out. That's Kayce Dutton. If I even give you more details about his life, it'll just be so much of a spoiler, so I won't. But just know that Kayce is just that person. So let's connect this to a school. So over the past 3 years, I've been accused of being a chauvinist. I've been accused of all kinds of, things, being racially oriented, all these accusations, but then these things were done for the purpose of trying to rattle me, trying to prove something about me that was not true. And each time they were unfounded, and I kept on moving forward. But in the midst of it, it was hurtful, it was painful, because I know I work really hard to take care of my people. I don't even have to like you, but if you're on my team, my job and my obligation is to make sure that you're taken care of. And it's sad to find yourself in a position where you're like, man, no matter how much I try, they keep coming after me. But I'm used to that. If you want to be a leader, just be ready to be accused of things, of people trying to do all kinds of weird things just because they're upset, they're mad because they didn't get a yes from you. Because you have to think about the bigger picture and they're only thinking about themselves. But then comes real tragedies. In 23, I lost a student. And I don't think I've ever been more shaken as in my career as an educator. Because my biggest fear was to be a school leader and to have one of my students pass away. That happened. But later on, not even a year later, I think it was the next summer, one of my former students committed suicide. I had to deal with that. Then the following year, another one of my students passed away from an illness. Then another staff member passed away. And it's funny because there were a lot of good things happening, but it's something different about losing people that just rocks you to your core. But still, I knew I had to be strong for my community. I had to be strong for the students. I had to be strong for the adults there, because, like, what's his name? Dr. Peterson, I forget his first name, the Canadian professor over at University of Toronto. He talks about the goal in life is to be the strongest person at your father's funeral. Because when everyone else is falling apart, can you be the one to hold everything together? And that requires resilience. It requires you saying, listen, I'm going to put aside my feelings, my emotions, to make sure that the core is taken care of. I get to cry later. And that is not Jamie, but Kayce Dutton's story. His principle, again, is resilience through tough times. So as a leader, what is your level of resilience? How do you handle tough times? How do you stand at the center, at the bottom, at the foundation of your community to make sure that everyone's still standing and everyone's still moving forward? Now this will be number 5. So number 5 is Jamie Dutton. Jamie Dutton is one of John Dutton's children. Very interesting character, very different from the siblings. In many ways, he looks different. Just his affect is different. He's not as tough as his siblings. He's not a cowboy. You know, Beth is not a cowgirl, but you can tell she's with it. You know, she's about the proverbial shits. She will get in there. But Jamie is not quiet. You know, he could work the ranch. He could do a lot of the roles in the ranch, but that's not who he really is. At least that's not who he is groomed to be. So his principle is understand your role and limitations. And this is very important because often as leaders, we fail at that. We think being a leader is the role and that's it. I am the principal, I'm the assistant principal, I'm the superintendent, and that's it. No. The greater question is, do you understand what your limitations are in your role? As a principal, what are your limitations? Don't tell me that you got everything under control, but that's complete nonsense. There is so much in leading that we're not good at. Just as there's so much that we are good at. But what happens is when you try to lie to yourself and be like, oh, I can do all this and I can do it by myself, then guess what happens? You fail. You fail. It's funny, there's this piece of this that I think I did a video about this, and it had to do with imposter syndrome. So often, we're not willing to accept the fact that being a leader puts you in the most worst space in which you suffer from imposter syndrome, where you're like, where you ask yourself, am I good enough for this? When things start falling apart around you, you're like, how do I handle this? And you start to doubt yourself. You question yourself. Unfortunately, a lot of us leaders, what we end up doing is we say nothing. We try to hide our fears. We try to hide our failures until it compounds, and all of a sudden, now you're being seen in a light that is not truly true to who you are. And before you know it, everything falls apart. You're being walked out of your building. You're being told, we don't know if this is the right role for you. You're being demoted. You're being moved because you weren't willing to accept the fact from the jump. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm not good at. This is what I need help with. And this is very important because if your leadership structure understands, like, hey, you have faith in me, but these are areas that I need your support in, guess what they will do? They'll support you. I'm yet to see a superintendent or principal who's not, or I mean, the good ones who are now willing to say, okay, I hired you for this skill sets here, but I know it, I see it. You're just telling me these areas of you need support in, then guess what I will do? I'll support you. I get you the training. I get you the right people around you. I get people from some districts come and support you to make sure that the areas that you're lacking in are filled so you can be strong across the board. That's the thing with Jamie. Jamie, for all his issues, is constantly filling spaces as needed. And he fills them in ways where he knows his limitations and he's able to figure out how to use people around him to kind of fill in the gaps. He doesn't always do it right, I tell you. They'll watch the show and be like, oh my God, Jamie. No, but you have to understand as you go through the series and the seasons, why he is the way he is. And we all have those issues. But the worst you can do is lie to yourself and say, oh no, I'm perfect, I got this, when you really don't. So again, as a leader in this space, do you know your limitations? If you do know your limitations, how are you addressing them? How is the work that you're doing fitting and supporting your ability to really maximize your strength in your role? And then as a leader, how are you doing that for your team as well? There's no in the world you're going to build a team of people who are perfect. That's not possible. You're going to have a team of people who have strengths. But guess what? They will also have weaknesses. And then lastly, I'm going to go back to number 4, which actually, I got where are you? Number 4. Here we go. Number 4. Yes. And number 4 brings everyone back together again. So we're going to call this the Dutton family principle. And it's focused on strength and community. And I'm sure you've seen this theme as I've been speaking, how all these people are facets of leadership that support the whole, that supports John Dutton as the leader. For the most part, John Dutton is not someone, for the most part, he is the CEO of the Dutton clan, Yellowstone Ranch. But whether it's Beth or Kayce or Jamie or Rip Wheeler, these people, amongst others, are all key roles that supports the work, that supports the vision, the mission of John Dutton and the Yellowstone Dutton Ranch. It's very important to understand, no matter what's going on within a school, within an organization, where it is, that building community is at the core of ensuring success. If people are doing their own thing or are not grounded in what the collective vision is, then you will have a problem. And that problem will follow you all the way through, to your demise. So again, these are the principles from this show. I know some people might say this is a stretch, but I'll tell you this show is amazing. And I am midway through season 4, and I'm kind of mad because it's going really, really quickly. But I tell you this, as I watch it, there's always quotes and things being said that make me go, wow, how does this fit into the greater vision of leadership and what I do as a principal, what I do as a man, what do I do as just a leader in general? And I want to share this with you guys. So my next episode, I'm going to tell you right now, spoiler alert, next one, the one after, is going to be around a quote that I heard in the show that made me go, damn, that's powerful. But until then, Uche and Joku, Sneaker Principal. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sneaker Principal podcast, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Be well.